to get into the actual presentation, the dystocia and its management in bovine practice. Our farmers actually very often they used to call the veterinarians to attend the dystocia or the difficult birth in cattle. So this difficult birth in cattle, otherwise called dystocia, of course, I used to jovially tell to all the vets and my students, dystocia is a little easy difficult birth, and dystocia, it is also a more or less same term, DOSTOKIA. So if I mention dystocia to my students, it's a very difficult birth, and dystocia is a easy birth. So this dystocia, whenever when veterinarians are attending, so they have to first diagnose the condition properly, then as well as after diagnosing the condition, they have to select the suitable procedure. Then only they'll be able to make a effective delivery, or they'll be able to solve the issue. Otherwise, suppose if we are not going to be successful in our all kinds of technique or attempts, then finally it may result in the death of the fetus or death of the dam or illness of the dam. So if the death of the dam is going to be there, really it is a major loss to our farmer. I already mentioned, if most of the dairy farmers are poor farmers, they may be maintaining one or two, very few animals. So in that case, if a cow or a buffalo is going to die because of dystocia, the loss he is going to face is very heavy. Because if his livelihood is only one cow, then naturally he will not be able to come out of that situation. Nowadays, the an average milk yielding cow is costing 60,000, 70,000 rupees per animal. So if suppose if the calf is going to die, then naturally again he will be facing a major loss, because our farmers are traditional farmers and their animals also traditional animals. So from their forefathers, they traditionally maintain the top producing animal in his home. So when there is a female calf is going to born, then he used to reserve that heifer calf for the replacement. I mean, as a replacement to his stock. So naturally, if the cow or the calf is going to die, then he has to look for another animal, and he may not be much more happy out of that animal. So if the calf is very valuable nowadays, the embryo transfer they are doing a high quality semen to make the animal pregnant, and they are everyone, the veterinarian, the department, all are contributing to make an animal pregnant. Then finally, after spending the gestation period, if the animal is going to have a dead calf, then it is a huge loss to the animal owner, not only to the owner, it's all to the country also. So sometimes you will be able to save the calf and you will be able to save the mother, but subsequently the animal may face illness of the dam because of the dystocia. So it may result in subsequently the death of the dam because of septic metritis or severe the obturator paralysis or downer cow syndrome or something like that, or it may face morbidity like infertility problems. So we should be able to diagnose the condition properly when attending a dystocia. Not only that, after attending a dystocia, we should be able to save the animal. So when you are a veterinarian particularly a field veterinarian, should be very familiar with the science of parturition or the normal physiology of parturition. Without knowing the normal physiology of parturition, we may not be able to pinpoint the or assess the problem with the suffering animal or a dystocia animal, whether it's really having dystocia problem or whether it is a dystocia in the first stage, or whether the animal is in the first stage, second stage, or whatever it is. Unless you are familiar with the normal carving, we may not be able to make out the abnormal carving or the problem with the carving. So particularly some of the important signs like the enlarged udder with the engorged teeth. The udder enlargement will indicate the imminent parturition, and the relaxation of the pelvic ligaments. So this is more important. So the sinking of the ligaments, just in both the sides of the base of the tail, you can assess. Once the complete sinking is going to be there, complete relaxation is going to be there, the animal definitely will deliver within 12 to 16 hours. And the relaxation of the vulva you can assess. Of course, the dilatation of the cervix also will be there. It may not be visible. You have to do vaginal examination and confirm that one also. Along with this, the other symptoms like there may be slight reduction in temperature, animal will be restless. So many other signs are there, but these signs are very important. And based on that, you can come to a conclusion whether the animal is going in for delivery or not, the normal process. Along with that, you should be very familiar with the particularly the abdomen and pelvic anatomy of the bovine, because this is the area where we are dealing with the animal when you are attending a dystocia. So you should be very thorough and familiar. So in that case, you should know the anatomy of the pelvic cavity, the rectal examination, the rectal passage, the pelvic cavity, the abdominal area, and the pelvic inlet. This is the pelvic outlet. So the pelvic cavity, particularly the pelvic inlet is the very very important one you have to consider, because the pelvic inlet is constituted by bony portion, bony pelvis, the ilium, ischium, pubis. So the dorsally ilium, dorsally and the dorsomedially, then laterally ischium, then ventrally pubis. So this bony pelvis, I think this area, this is a view from behind the animal. So it will be, this is the bony pelvis or the pelvic inlet. So when the animal is going in for parturition, there will be complete relaxation of the pelvic outlet or because of the relaxation of the ligament, but there is no much change in the inlet of the pelvic cavity, particularly its vertical diameter or the horizontal diameter in all those things. So only you have to negotiate. Suppose if there is abnormal situation when the fetus is having when it is a what to say, oversized fetus or abnormally placed fetus, or when the presentation position, posture, these things are abnormal, then you have to correct those things. And when you are doing traction, you have to do some negotiation with the vertical diameter. It is the bigger one, and there is a biggest diameter when it is diagonally, if you look at it. So the RO is telling the diagonal. Actually, the fetal hip bones are illustrated here. So if you do turn the fetus when there is a problem, dystocia problem, or hip engaged in this place, if you do it, you will be able to relieve it nicely. Just to tell that one only, I put this illustration. And we are also should be familiar with the signs of parturition, so that we can do the very correct diagnosis, or we'll be in a position to do the diagnosis in a better way if you are very familiar with this one, particularly the stage 1 and stage 2 of this one. parturition. So the stage 1 is characterized by uterine contractions for positioning the calf for delivery, and the calf enters the vagina. That is, the cervical dilatation will take place. It will enter the vagina, and the duration is 2 to 6 hours. The stage 2, the release of allantoic fluid and onset of forceful abdominal straining and expulsion of the fetus will occur. I think you all must be remembering one reflex you have studied during your BVSC days, that is Ferguson reflex. So when the fetal head and fetal parts is completely occupying the vaginal passage, the final the expulsive force will occur because of the Ferguson reflex. So these things we should know, so that whether really the animal has passed the second stage or still it has to enter into the second stage. So all those things you have to consider before attending a dystocia. You should keep these things in your mind, because many occasions the farmers used to call us when the animal is really not having dystocia, or 1 or 2 days before parturition, the normal parturition, they may call us. So all those things, or when the animal is in the process of parturition, we do not disturb that. For that purpose, I just want to put that slide. So the subsequently, of course, at times, suppose if your hospital is very near to the animal owner residence, or sometimes they may transport the animal from a far distance, so they'll be able to bring the animal to your institution, to your hospital, to your center, all those things. But many occasions, particularly if it is a dystocia with a cow or a buffalo, the veterinarians are called to the farmer's place, to the site where the animal is locating. So in that case, of course, before reaching the farmer's place, you can get the history of the case from the farmers. Nowadays, the facilities of phone, smartphone, all those things are there. So the farmer can give you the details of the animals before you reach the place itself. Naturally, you'll take some time to reach the farmer's location. So by that time, you can speak to the farmer and get these details, like the duration of the gestation, really based on that breeding history details. If he gives, you'll be able to assess whether the animal has completed the gestation period or not. Then the previous parturition history you can ask. Previous parturition history in the sense, if it is a multiparous animal, then naturally previous calving was normal or not, whether he's having any problems. So all those things will help you. Then any illness during last trimester of pregnancy, that also will give you some support to assess the animal. The duration of dystocia, this is what I told, whether it is really animal has entered into the second stage, after second stage, what are all the problems with the animal. So you can assess the duration, then you can assess the nature of this training by asking the farmer or by observing it. The nature of water bags, whether is there any water bags have come out and ruptured, whether allantoic bag or amnion, all those things you can ask. Then any portion of the fetus appeared at external genitalia. Probably, if there is no progress, that indicates some postural abnormality. So to assess it, you can ask the animal owner. You can also observe, or any assistance such as traction, already given by the owner or the attendant or the neighbor or the any other veterinarian. So all those things indicates it's really a fresh case or a delayed case, or you can also expect any damage done by the animal itself or by the person already attended on that animal. So whether it is a primary or pluri, then whether the animal is able to get up, all those things, very quickly a comprehensive history you have to collect. So no doubt it is a dystocia is a very emergency case, but it doesn't mean that you can jump on the animal and start attending the dystocia immediately. Then a general examination. So you can take a breath and observe the animal, its physical condition, its pulse, temperature, respiration. whether the animal is dull, depressed, exhausted. Because an exhausted animal, then naturally you have to do other procedure. You have to support the animal, and then you have to get ready with the animal for the procedure. If the animal is not able to stand, you have to, if already they have done severe traction procedures, then whether is there things like obturator paralysis, the animal, whether the animal has suffered with milk fever or mastitis previously or just before parturition period. So those things will help to know about the condition of the animal. Then examination of the protruded part of the fetus, whether it is the protruded part is the limb or a head or a forelimb or hind limb. So things like if it is a forelimb, then the hoof will be facing the sky, or if it is a hind limb, it will be I mean, if it is a forelimb and normal presentation position posture, the hoof will be facing the floor, or if it is a posterior presentation, it will be facing the sky, or vice versa. If it is a dorso pubic position, then accordingly it may vary also. So you can assess that. Then nature of the discharge also indicates the condition of the case, whether the discharge is mucus or watery or bloody or fetid. So accordingly, you can assess this. If it is watery, it is a fresh case. Probably the allantoic bag got ruptured. So amniotic bag is still intact. So you got time, and you can start attending the case. If it is mucus, that indicates still animal is going in for parturition, or things like some torsion. Those things may be there. If it is a fetid, it's a very delayed case. So accordingly, you can I mean, you can be prepared to select your procedure. Then examination of the fetal membranes, if it is hanging outside. If fetal membrane is hanging, it indicates it's a little delayed case. So the calf may not be alive, but rarely even with the hanging placenta, if the placenta is little fresh, then the calf may be alive if it is an anterior presentation. Then the examination of the external genitalia, then rectal examination. Of course, rectal examination you have to do it before start doing vaginal examination, because if there is a uterine torsion, then again you may have to do it. Of course, through rectal examination also, to some extent, you can assess the dilatation of the cervix and the presentation position posture of the fetus also. As a practicing vet, you should know when to intervene the parturition process or the dystocia. So whenever that's what I'm telling you, to observe the animal. When the stage 1 is prolonged, it is for more than 8 hours, then it's really something wrong with the animal. It may be a breech presentation, or it may be a abnormal position. The fetus is not able to even come out of the cervix, or it is just in front of the fully dilated cervix. So that kind of problem may be there if it is more than 8 hours. Or the water sac is visible for 2 hours. For example, the allantoic or amniotic water sac is mainly, particularly allantoic, for 2 hours, and the cow is not trying. That indicates there is something wrong with the P1, P2, P3 of the fetus or the pelvis. Then if a cow is training for 30 minutes and making no progress, in that case also you have to think about intervening. If the cow quit trying for over a period of 15 to 20 minute period, if there is no progress, because in between two straining, normally the cow used to take 5 to 10 minutes rest only. So after a series of strenuous training, it will take 5 to 10 minutes rest, and again straining will start. So if there is no further straining or abdominal contraction from the animal side, then naturally you have to intervene. It may be a dystocia caused by something. It indicative of the fatigue of the animal or the secondary uterine inertia, these things. So at times, the cow or the calf showing excessive fatigue, the animal will be fully exhausted. The protruded part of the animal, particularly the fetal head is protruded, the tongue will be swollen. So in all these conditions, you have to intervene immediately. Of course, abnormal presentation, position, posture, if you are able to assess, then you have to intervene. Then immediately you have to go for specific examination. The specific examination is the vaginal examination. So before going in for vaginal examination, you have to prepare the animal, because animal will be, most of the animals will be straining strenuously unless it is a very simple form of dystocia. If you are very confident that you can just pull the fetus out or something like that, you can do it without epidural anesthesia. Otherwise, if it is really a little difficult case, you have to go for epidural anesthesia. And normally a cow may require about 5 ml, 5 to 8 ml. The standard medicine we are using is the lichenocaine hydrochloride. Of course, the things like lidocaine, then bupivacaine, these things are also available, but this is more cheap and easily available. And I prefer the standing position of the animal. So whenever the animal is in standing position, it will be more convenient for you to attend the dystocia. Since you are also in standing position, easily you can do examination, easily you can adapt all the procedures. Suppose if the naturally, when the exhausted animal or an animal suffering with the dystocia, most of the animals may be in sternal recumbency. So what you have to do is the animal is recommend you try to raise the hindquarters easily in rural places. So when you are there in the animal farm, you ask the animal owner to bring a gunny bag and put the straws or whatever the content available. You fill the gunny bag and ask them to lift the hindquarter and put it below the hip joint. Then automatically the hindquarter is raised. Without that, it may be very, very difficult for you to attend the dystocia. You'll become simply very tired, or you may not be able to attend a dystocia by just sitting on the ground, or lying on the ground. So you have to raise the hindquarters. Nowadays, the hindquarter raiser kind of equipments available, but anyhow you may not be able to take such equipments or purchase such equipments in the field area. So you have to, whatever the available things, raise the hindquarters. Then you should get ready with the lubrication. The simple one is warm saline you can prepare, or the fluid replacer is also available, J-loop, or by using linseed, you can boil the linseed and prepare the this one, or soap water also can be used. So whatever available and quickly available, that kind of things can be used. Of course, you have to get ready with the space. You have to the proper space also. Enough space you have to should be available to attend a case of dystocia. So you should be comfortable, and the animal also should be comfortable. Then number two, the floor for proper footing of the animal. The floor must be proper, or try to shift the animal to such a place. And proper, you should have proper footing. Then only you will be able to apply all the procedures on the fetus or on the animal. And these are all the, just to tell you, you all must be familiar with the instruments for manipulative delivery. And of course, in my opinion, the veterinarian hand is the best instrument. So it is really very flexible, and you can, in a human manner, you can apply whatever the amount of traction you can give with your hand. You can go into the uterus, the space available, you can bend your fingers, the palm, hand, all those things. So veterinarian hand is the best obstetrical instrument. Then of course the obstetrical rope, then chains, then hooks, many people are fond of the long obstacle hook. Of course, the things like cone scratch, then T-torsion fork. So all these things, whatever if it is available in your dispensary, so that kind of things also you can use. Just to tell you about the epidural anesthesia. So between the, you can easily locate the sacrococcygeal space. So this is the sacrococcygeal area. So by moving the tail up and down, something like moving a hand pump, you know, you can just move it and then locate the sacrococcygeal space. Then the intercoccygeal, between the first and second coccygeal, no, you can see the first intercoccygeal space. And usually this place is recommended. So about 5 to 7, 8 ml you can do, and you can also leave the needle with a syringe as such. Suppose if there is a need for more and if you have to adjust and give additional quantity, then that also you can give. Normally we used to use 18 gauge needle for that. Of course, if the dystocia is a very delayed one, or like the fetus is emphysematous, in that conditions and all, you have to be I mean, always you have to prepare this area in a aseptic way and give epidural anesthesia, since you are it is very close to the spinal area. If it is an infected, I mean, the fetus is very delayed one, very delayed dystocia, you have to be extra careful. So after giving epidural anesthesia and preparing the animal, then you have to go for the detailed examination under specific examination. So in a detailed examination, so you have to examine the genital tract and as well as fetus. So during the examination, so you have to wear a plastic gloves, particularly if it is a I mean, if there is an history of or incidence of brucellosis in that area, of course, not only in that, in all the cases, it is always better to wear gloves and go for detailed examination. So you have to do examination in the genital tract and rule out the causes of dystocia in the tubular genitalia. The things like of course, at the time of genital tract examination, you have to rule out the evidence of any trauma. If it is already attended by someone, or the usually many times the dystocia animal, you know, it is after the attendance of a quack or someone, finally they will come to the veterinarian. So in most of the cases, they would cause some damage to any evidence of trauma. The birth canal used to be examined. So the birth canal is moist or dry. So if the birth canal is moist, it indicates it's a very fresh case. If it is a passage is dry, that indicates it's a very delayed case or reasonably delayed according to the dryness. Then you look for the dilatation of the birth passage as well, I mean vaginal passage, as well as the cervix. If you are not able to reach the cervix, then you look for the twist in the vaginal passage because of uterine torsion, post-cervical uterine torsion, the vaginal twist will be there. Then the passage is inflamed. In some of the conditions, the passage will be highly inflamed because of too much straining by the animal, or someone would have attended for a long time. So the passage is inflamed or swollen. If it is swollen, there will not be much space for you to go in and do the correction procedures of on the fetus. Whether the passage is necrotic, if it is necrotic, that indicates the fetus is emphysematous and it is a highly delayed case. Whether is there any stenosis in the birth canal, like in the vaginal passage, if there is any stenosis or developmental anomaly, obstruction, particularly in the liver, you can look for that. Then, of course, the nature of the mucus. If the nature of the mucus is gummy, that indicates, and the cervix is palpable, that indicates still the animal is having time to go for situation. If everything is okay and the cervix is fully dilated, then the fetus is there in the passage, then you examine the fetus, whether the fetus is there in the very close to the external genitalia, I mean vulva, or whether it is there in the birth passage, or whether it has not entered into the pelvic inlet at all. So all those things you have to assess when examining the fetus. Then when the fetus is within your reach, you have to look for the nature of the fetus, whether the fetus is live or dead. If it is a very delayed case, chances for a dead fetus also are there. Many occasions, the fetus may be in a very fatigue condition, and when you are just palpate the fetus, you may inform the owner that the fetus is dead. Then finally, after relieving the fetus, many occasions the live fetus you may be able to relieve. So in order to avoid that kind of situation, first you see the nature of the fetus or condition of the fetus by doing all these reflexes. I mean, by doing a pressure at giving a pressure at the digital area, the western area, the calf will be able to withdraw its legs, withdrawal reflex, then suckling reflex, then eye reflex. So if you put your hand into the mouth, suckling reflex, you will feel. Eye reflex, if you give a tap on the eye or give little pressure, it will try to move its head. And if it is a posterior presentation, put your finger into the rectal passage of the fetus, so it will contract, and the rectal reflex you'll be able to feel. Heartbeat you can find out in, if it is an anterior presentation, put your hand between the forelimbs and go to the chest portion, the left side, and see the left side of the fetus and see the heartbeat. Or if it is in posterior presentation, you go, I mean, put your hand behind in between the hind limbs and try to hold the umbilicus. Then you'll get the umbilical beat, I mean, beat in the umbilicus pulsation. So all these things indicates it's a live fetus. So accordingly, you have to plan your procedure to relieve the fetus as quick as possible. Of course, even when the fetus may be alive, but at the same time, you have to look at the presentation, position, posture of the fetus. We used to mention that P1, P2, P3. So roughly you can come to a conclusion what exactly the issue, whether the issue is maternal or fetal, all those things. So just let us just look at, so what is normal presentation, position and posture. So the presentation is P1, we used to tell the relation between the long axis of the fetus to that of the dam, and the portion of the fetus entering into the pelvic cavity. So usually the anterior longitudinal is the normal presentation, or the posterior longitudinal. Some of the textbooks used to say that posterior longitudinal itself is an abnormal presentation. Then position is defined as the relation between the dorsum of the fetus in longitudinal presentation and the head of the fetus in transverse presentation with the quadrants of the maternal pelvis. The quadrants of the maternal pelvis are dorsally the sacrum, laterally the ilium, left side and right side ilium, then ventrally the pubis. So accordingly, I think dorsosacral is the normal position. Then the posture, you have to look at it. Posture is nothing but relationship of the extremities of the fetus to its own body. Thank God the extremities or the appendages of the fetus are flexible. So that is how we are able to, hold the appendages and correct the abnormality. Otherwise, you just imagine if the appendages are not flexible, then we may not be able to do anything, the correction procedures for the postural abnormality. This is the the normal one. Then after the detailed examination of the passage and the calf, the features, you have to come to a conclusion because this is very vital. Whether the problem is with a dam, with the maternal side or in the fetal side. So if it is in the maternal side, then you have to look at it whether the defect is with the expulsive forces, whether the animal is not able to push it outside. So it may be uterine defects, it may be abdominal defects like hernia. Those things also will be there with the cow. So if it is due to defective expulsive forces, then whether it is a problem with the uterus or problem with the abdomen, these things you have to observe it and look at it. Then if the defect is with the birth canal of the cow or the buffalo, and what exactly the birth canal defect, whether it is a narrow pelvis or if the pelvis is okay, then you have to look at the dilatation of the external genitalia, then vagina, cervix, and the uterus. Of course, the uterus also should be fully relaxed and the normal contractions, all those things are required. So if the uterus is not fully dilated, in the sense very delayed cases of dystocia, the uterus is completely, I mean, there will not be any space between the fetus and the uterus, and improper cervical dilatation, the vaginal dilatation is not proper, or the vaginal passage may not be proper because of edema, and again the external genitalia, if there is any anatomical defect. So all those things also you have to look at it, and accordingly you have to select the suitable procedure to solve the issue. And in fetal side, suppose the maternal side is okay, the fetal side, it may be the oversize of the fetus, particularly in heifers, a slight oversize. It may be a fetal oversize, maybe hello, Tata, please. It may be disposition, the P1, P2, P3 abnormalities. So suppose if the fetus is an anterior presentation, the limb may be in problem, the head may be a problem. In posterior presentation, it may be a problem with the hip or hock flexion, hip flexion, the head deviation, head may be deviated. Any of the coming slides we will be able to see. In anterior presentation, if you look at the common abnormalities, the flexion at the knee level or fetlock level or the shoulder level, or the deviation of the head, it may be the deviation may be in the lateral side, or it may be in the dorsal side, maybe in the ventral side. Ventral side also different degrees of deviations are there. In the case of the common posterior abnormalities, I told you the normal posterior presentation itself is little abnormal presentation according to some textbooks. The bilateral hip flexion or the breech presentation, this is bilateral hock flexion, and this is unilateral hock flexion. At times, very rarely you may come across, if there is a twins, the limbs of both the calf may be simultaneously presented, the hind limbs of one calf, forelimbs of other calves, like that. So it is possible if both are entering into the cavity. And these are all some of the rare abnormalities, dorsopubic presentation, and this is dog sitting posture. The head and all the forelimbs will be presented in the passage. This is dorso-transverse presentation, and this is ventro-transverse presentation. Very rarely, or you may not come across in bovine. At times, the fetal monsters you may come across. This is oversized fetus. This is schistosomal reflexes. This is conjoined twins, and this is double-headed monster. This particular double-headed monster picture was sent to me by one veterinarian, Lakshmanan, yesterday. So I brought it inside. He delivered this one yesterday near Vellore. And After doing all these things, you have to decide your obstetrical procedure. First, your diagnosis should be proper, all your examination and assessment is going to be proper. Then you can pinpoint the obstetrical procedure. And again, the obstetrical procedure, everyone may prefer their own style of procedure, but still, before selecting that procedure, you have to select the very right procedure. Otherwise, all your attempts to relieve the dystocia or solve the problem may become futile. Suppose if the problem is on the fetus, then your procedures are any one of these things. Like if it is on the fetus, you may have to apply the correction procedures or the obstetrical maneuvers like repulsion, rotation, version, and adjustment of the extremities. After doing correction, because always if there is a problem with the fetus, usually the P1, P2, P3, so those things are to be corrected. So in order to correct the abnormal presentation, position, posture, you have to apply these obstetrical correction procedures. The repulsion you have to do. The very first few slides I mentioned about the pelvic anatomy or the pelvic cavity, and the the fetus is always before parturition located in the abdominal area. Then it has to enter into the pelvic cavity. So after entering into the pelvic cavity, or when it is about to enter into the pelvic inlet, if there is going to be abnormal presentation, position, and posture, there will not be any further progress. But at times, even the some portion of the fetus may come out. The flexed portion will be retained inside, and if it is a little delayed case, it will get packed tightly in the pelvic cavity, particularly in the pelvic inlet area. So the pelvic cavity is not a spacious one, and you may not be able to do your obstetrical procedures in the pelvic cavity. So necessarily you have to push the fetus into the uterus in the abdominal area, and you have to do the correction procedures. So you have to the repulsion is, suppose if there is a need for traction, then you should know thoroughly about the points of the traction, principles of traction, and all those things. Then at times, if the fetus is, I mean, if there is a difficulty in applying these procedures, and as well as the traction, because unless you do the correction procedures, you may not be able to do the traction. Then you may have to adopt some other procedures like fetotomy on the fetus. Then on the dam, if the problem is not with the fetus, or immediately if the procedures cannot be applied on the fetus, then the problem on the dam is to be corrected. Particularly, for example, in the case of uterine torsion, you have to do rolling. Specific techniques are there, and you have to correct the torsion procedure. Then you have to go for the problem with the fetus and correct it. Of course, there are some other conditions. If it exists, accordingly, you have to select the suitable procedures on the dam, the procedures like episiotomy, cervicotomy, or cesarean section. The repulsion is nothing but pushing the fetus into the more spacious abdominal area, along with I mean, into the uterus. The rotation is rotating the fetus on its longitudinal axis. The version is rotating the fetus in its transverse axis. Particularly, it is required when the fetus is in transverse presentation, or particularly torso-pubic or torso-ventral. But such exact abnormal transverse presentation you may not come across. But even vertical presentation, also only dog sitting posture you may come across. So whatever it is, the rotation in a transverse way you have to do it. I mean, rotation of the fetus on its long axis, you may have to do it, or the version, the transverse way you have to do it. Always that kind of abnormality, you have to convert it into a posterior presentation and apply other procedures. So in the mutation procedure, already I explained the repulsion, rotation, version, and extension and adjustment of the extremities is to be done to bring back the fetus into a normal presentation, position, posture. Then only it is possible to relieve the dystocia or the difficult birth. Then only once the extremities are to be going to be extended, then only the diameter of the fetus is sufficient, or it's okay to come out through the diameter of the pelvic inlet. So the extension, under extension and adjustment of the extremities, it's again just to tell you, there are some principle you have to adapt, particularly when you are dealing with the extremities. So it is correction of the abnormal posture, usually due to flexion of one or more of the extremities causing dystocia. So you have to follow 3 basic mechanical principles in correcting this problem, or in extending the flexed portion. So the repulsion of the proximal portion of the flexed extremity, you have to repel it inside the proximal portion, and the middle portion is to be rotated laterally, and the distal portion is to be I mean, you have to apply traction on the distal portion, so automatically it will get corrected. This illustration, this slide will give you the idea how an operator is correcting a shoulder flexion. See, shoulder flexion, you have to see in any dystocia or little delayed because of the very strenuous training of the animal in the process of pushing it out, because animal may not be knowing it is a shoulder flexion or whatever it is, so it will get packed in the pelvic cavity. So the operator has to, after doing the fluid replacement, because in all these cases you may have to push some 8 to 10 liters of warm saline or the lubricant inside. The best method of pushing the fluid inside is, in my practice, I used to use about 1 meter length of cycle tube or a flexible any other tube. So one end of the tube, you have to take it inside or beyond the hind portion of the animal. Then from the other side, you have to pour with the help of a funnel, you have to pour the fluid. So once about 6 to 8 liters of fluid is going to be there inside the uterus, it is easy for you. When any material is in the inside the water in a fluid media, it is easy for you to do the correction. You will get space and you will be more convenient. So you push it inside the, by putting your I mean, in the shoulder joint, you put it firmly and push it inside. So automatically it will go inside. Then the shoulder, the staple joint will get flexed, and you will get you'll be able to reach the I mean the leg of the fetus. Then by holding it slowly, you can extend it. I mean, the principles you have to adopt. The distal portion used to be I'm sorry, the proximal portion, you have to push it inside. The middle portion, you have to move it laterally, and the distal portion, you have to hold it and move it medially and pull it out. So this is how he is pushing dorsally and inside. Then the distal portion is pulling it out. It is something like a, I mean, arc like rotation also he is doing. suppose if it is a lateral division of the head, so you can apply head snare or mandibular snare. When you are applying mandibular snare, you have to be very careful. You can take the loop of the snare and go inside and apply. The head snare also you will be able to apply with the help of hooks, or even by putting it over the head and put the knot in the head snare. You can put it in the mouth, and you can ask the attendant to pull it nicely, and at the same time you have to keep the head in your cup, I mean in your palm, and at the same time you have to push the fetus inside and relieve the neck deviation, whether it is lateral or dorsal, whatever it is. You have to repel the body of the animal into the abdominal area and do this correction. But there are conditions like cases like wry neck because of the developmental anomaly, particularly in a bicornual pregnancy. You may not be able to correct it. So in that cases, you have to adopt different procedures like feetotomy or something like that. This is again the correction of the breech presentation, particularly posterior presentation. In many occasions, it may result in breech presentation. So what you have to do is the principle, it is nicely, I mean, mentioned in Roberts. So the repulsion of the proximal portion of the extremity. So this is the proximal portion. So you have to put your hand in the perineal portion of the fetus and push it as deep as inside. So this is the arrow is telling you have to push it, you have to lift it and push it. And again, the lateral rotation of the middle portion of the extremity. So this is the middle portion of the extremity. So you have to do, I mean, the hock joint, you have to rotate it laterally, and at the same time, by keeping the, I mean, your palm in the distal portion, you just do the traction externally as well as little medially, so that you'll be able to easily relieve this breech presentation. But always keep, please remember it that you have to infuse enough amount of fluid inside, and you have to lubricate the passage when you are doing this kind of correction procedures. So this is just tell you the correction of the again one more illustration of how the one retention of the hip is converted into hock presentation. After converting into hock presentation by applying a snare, how he is try to push the hip inside and extending the flexed portion. Of course, once after correcting the presentation, position, posture, so you have to, because always once if there is a postural abnormality, in most of the cases, it may be a little delayed cases also. So animal may not be able to, once after doing the correction procedure, I mean, after bringing to a normal P1, P2, P3, animal may be fully exhausted and it may not be push it out. Then naturally you have to do the forced extraction. So wherever the fetus is little larger in size, when compared to the, particularly in heifers, in all these things, also you may have to adopt the forced extraction or extraction procedure. So extraction procedure, you have to follow certain principles to, relieve the dystrophy successfully. It is just a usually external force. Normally we will use one or two assistants also. I think mostly if it is a simple dystocia case, one assistant strength is sufficient, or one one man force is sufficient, because the normally animal force is about 50 kgs for a delivery. So a single man can give force up to 75 kgs. So if a simple force a person is giving, he'll be able to give at least 50 kgs of force. So 2 persons is mostly sufficient. Very rarely you may require 3 persons for post extraction. But if it is 3 and more than 3 persons are doing traction, then automatically you may be doing damage to the fetus. So avoid too much force wherever it is possible when doing traction. The indications for traction: when there is a uterine inertia, usually in bovine, there are 2 types of inertia, primary and secondary. But always, more than 90% of the cases, it is a secondary uterine inertia you may come across, and it is not the cause of the dystocia, it is caused by the dystocia because of the delay. So it is always epidural anesthesia is indicated, then only it is possible. Then of course, you would have introduced enough amount of fluid inside at the time of correcting the abnormality. But however, at the time of doing traction, enough lubrication you have to apply. The best one is the castor oil or mineral oil. With all the farmers, always the oil will be, any mineral oil also will be available. The best one is castor oil. Or if you are having the recommended lubricants like J-Lube or whatever it is really very good. And when the fetal oversize is there, there is a need for traction. And in primiparous animal, even normal birth, you may have to assist. And always in posterior presentation, there may be a need if there is a delay in delivery. Then it is in order to save the time, or in order to avoid fetotomy and cesarean section, other procedures also, you may have to do the traction procedure. And it is also indicated in dystocia due to emphysematous fetus. So if you do cesarean on an emphysematous fetus, always there is every chance for contamination and peritonitis to develop. So it is better you go for forced retraction. If not, you may have to adopt fetotomy also. In many fetotomy operations, forced extraction is used as an aid. After cutting the fetus into pieces, you have to do forced extraction. So it is contraindicated in certain cases. So the abnormal presentation, position, posture, it is contraindicated. The reason is, unless you correct it, you may not be able to deliver it. That is why in the first slide, it shown that the 2-3 people are doing traction, still it is not possible. Even a tractor is attached with the fetal parts, limbs, and still it is not possible. So if you don't do the correction, only you will be dragging the dam, and you will not be able to affect the delivery. So when there is very narrow birth canal, you cannot do it. Secondary uterine inertia with contraction ring dystocia, so it may lead to rupture of the uterus, so you cannot do traction. Then improper cervical dilatation, there is no space to take the fetus out, you cannot do. Animal affected with obturator paralysis, avoid traction, because already damage to the obturator nerves are there. Then severe laceration of the birth canal, you have to avoid traction. Traction points: the legs of the fetus, you can forelimb, hind limbs, you need posterior presentation. The head snare you can apply like this. So the head of the fetus, and the inner canthus of the eyeball. If it is a live fetus, you have to be little careful. Of course, only the long obstetrical hook you have to use. But if it is a dead fetus, the short hooks also can be applied, and you can use it as the traction points. The application of traction instruments also, you have to follow certain procedure. So you have to apply a knot, then and followed by a half hitch, and this is the procedure you have to follow, and this is not the correct procedure, and this is a okay procedure. And mandibular snare also. The snare may be applied around the lower jaw, and Titan family to many veterinarians used to do it. But in a live fetus, suppose if excessive force is applied, then there is a risk of breaking the lower jaw. Many occasions I have seen vets taking a live calf with uh, I mean problem with the lower jaw or breaking of the bone of the lower jaw. Then subsequently that calf may not be able to survive, or there is not much use with that calf, even if it is live. So you apply either the head snare and do traction. Suppose if you do the only traction with the mandibular snare, then you try to give only minimum force. If it is not possible to relieve dystocia, then you adapt to the other points of traction and other procedure. And when you are doing traction, there is a certain principles you have to follow in the technique of withdrawing fetus through the birth canal. Uh, in anterior presentation, there are 3 points available for traction in both the limbs and the, I mean, eyeball or the lower jaw. So after putting the appropriate points, the rope or the chains, then the traction direction also you have to concentrate. That is similar to, or you have to mimic the normal birth process. In the normal birth process, if you just observe, the parturition is the fetus is coming out in the form of an arc. So the same procedure you have to adapt. The next illustration I'll be able to show that the traction should be applied in a steady, even manner. So that will help you to relieve the dystocia through traction after correcting the fetus to a normal presentation position posture. And the traction should be arc like I told. So this is first when you are lifting the fetus from the abdominal area into the belly cavity, it should be upward and backward, so that the fetus will get lifted, so it will not get stuck in the bottom of the pelvic inlet, that is the pubic bone. So it will get lifted and it will get into the pelvic cavity. Then slowly your traction force should be backward, that is horizontal. First backward, I mean upward, backward, then horizontal. Then once the legs and head is going to come close to the external genitalia, and once if the legs are going to clear the external genitalia, then it should be downward. Then once the head and limbs are going to be come out of the external genitalia, it should be more and more downward, that more or less the perpendicular to the hind limbs. So just like an arc like traction you have to do. So that is the normal process taking place in the when an animal is delivering a fetus in a standing posture. And in technique of withdrawing the fetus, there is some more thing you have to concentrate. If there is a little difficulty, or if there is a need to negotiate more with the pelvic inlet when the fetus is entering into the pelvic inlet, you have to adopt these procedures. Like see, in the case of cow and buffalo, in uniparous animal, the bishoulder diameter as well as the biceliac diameter, the diameter of the fetus between the shoulders and the diameter of the fetus between its hip bone. So these things are more important in bovine, cows and buffaloes. So if you are able to negotiate with I already told you, so in a pelvic bone, you cannot increase the diameter of the pelvis, either transverse diameter or vertical diameter, whatever it is, you may not be able to, since it is a bony pelvis. So you have to negotiate with the fetus only. So what you can do is, so you do traction in such a way that the one shoulder of the fetus enter into the pelvic inlet little earlier than the other shoulder. So for that, you should do traction in such a way that the fetus leg, which is little more, I mean, both the limbs may not be there in the same length. So the slightly the advanced limb towards the external genitalia, you apply uh, uh, traction first on this limb, then subsequently with the other limb. So when you are giving a pull or traction to one limb, automatically the fetus will assume this position. So easily one shoulder is enter into the pelvic inlet first, followed by the other shoulder. So it is the somehow you are putting it diagonally, so automatically it is easy for the fetus to come out when you are doing traction. So similarly, when the hip portion of the fetus is clearing the pelvic inlet, normally when the head and limbs are going to come out of the external genitalia in an anterior presentation, so when the head and limbs are going to come out of the external genitalia, that indicates the hip is about to clear the pelvic inlet. So at that time, so in order to achieve the, I mean, this kind of, I mean, bi-shoulder method, so you also slightly turn the fetus about 45-degree angle. So why you have to turn the fetus to 45-degree angle in the sense? So diagonally, the pelvic inlet diameter is highest vertically, slightly diagonally. So when you are going to turn the fetus like this, I mean 45-degree angle, so the fetus will get cleared at this level. So the highest diameter of the fetus, easily it will come out. So once the hip bone is going, I mean visceriac diameter of the fetus or the hip portion of the fetus is going to come out of the pelvic inlet, again another 45-degree, that is 90-degree, you have to rotate the fetus. You can do this one by doing cross traction also. At that time the fetus will turn slightly, and easily you can negotiate with the highest dia, and you can clear the hip portion also. So and all these things you have to do it in an arc-like fashion, and delivery by this one, I mean traction is possible. If the fetus is a dead one, or for some reason, for example, if it is a lateral deviation of the head because of Reinach, you cannot correct it, so you may have to sacrifice the fetus and do fetotomy and take it out. Or if it is absolutely oversize of the fetus because of the edema, so all these things you may have to do fetotomy to reduce the size of the fetus or to make the fetus into pieces. So suppose if fetotomy is a must and the fetus is live, then you have to sacrifice the fetus, because there is no point in taking a, I mean doing all these procedure. But mostly or usually on a dead fetus, the fetotomy is recommended. But very few cases I have come across in my practice. In one particular case, the in bi-shoulder flexion, both the shoulders are flexed, the head has come out because of the vulval edema. There is a severe constriction in the neck of the fetus. Then finally, the protruded head has become highly edematous, very large in size, because of no blood supply. I mean the drainage of the blood, because of the pressure in the neck by the vulval muscles and all those things. So finally, the fetus also, it was a dead one, and you cannot do reduction with a edematous head. So naturally, you have to do the removal of the head and push the fetus inside and correct the procedure. So this kind of things, or if it is an abnormal a monster, by doing phytotomy, you will be able to remove it also. In all those conditions, you have to cut the fetus, a portion that is called a partial phytotomy, or the total phytotomy also. I mean, all the possible parts, you have to cut into stage by stage and take it out. So it may be a partial or a complete phytotomy. You have to do it. The indications for phytotomy, as I have mentioned, fetopelvic disproportion due to relative fetal oversize, the narrow pelvic cavity due to pelvic fractures. I mean, when the cow, when it was a calf, it would have faced some accident. See, for example, when it is there in a railway track or in the road, always when something is coming, a train or this one, it will try to move away from that one. In that process, the hind portion only will got into problem, and subsequently animal may recover and become an adult one, and it will get conceived. But whenever when you are doing AI to such cow, you have to warn all these things to the owner, so that in time you can do cesarean and take a live calf. Otherwise, in a serious narrow pelvis, if there is a space, you have to go for only phytotomy at the time of parturition or dystocia. Then emphysematous fetus, then fetal monsters, the phytotomy is indicated. The instruments used for phytotomy, of course, if it is a field case, it's very difficult to do total phytotomy. So these instruments are used for either partial or total phytotomy. It's a Utrecht phytotome. You all must be knowing, in your BVC days you would have studied. But however, some of the things, it can be used for during traction also, like to put the snare. Suppose if you are not able to reach the exact portion of the fetus, some these hooks and these snare introducers, so all these things can be used. It's actually a wire introducer. It also can be used as a snare introducer during your dystocia time. So if you have access to phytotome or the other small phytotome instruments, you can think about partial phytotomy. But usually partial phytotomy, the removal of the head or removal of one shoulder, or in a wry neck. So these conditions, you may have to do it. Otherwise, suppose if the fetus is even if it is a dead fetus, the passage may not be is sufficient for you to do the phytotomy procedures. So in that conditions and all, you have to choose cesarean section. These illustrations just to tell you where you have to apply the phytotome wires and do the phytotomy procedures. And this is phytotomy of the head, and this is phytotomy of the shoulder portion, one shoulder. Then phytotomy of the trunk. You can do phytotomy of the trunk at in the middle portion as well as in the hind portion. Then amputation of the rear limb or bisection of the pelvis. So these are all the things. Of course, there are two phytotomy procedures you all must be knowing: subcutaneous and the percutaneous phytotomy. So very rarely in the field this kind of instrument is not available. Then you can think about subcutaneous phytotomy, just to remove. I mean, to do if the head is very close to the external genitalia, decapitation you can think about, or if it is because of shoulder flexion, and if it is not an irreducible one, then you can do subcutaneous in the field also. It's a amputation of the forelimb in a bigger picture. So and another procedure on the fetus is episiotomy, you see. So you may have to, if the by birth, mostly the vulval opening is very small, if it is stenosed, or at times there will be fusion will be there between the vulval lips. In all these cases, the space is not sufficient for the fetus to come out, or the calf to come out, only the leg or a portion only may come out. So you may have to do the episiotomy. Episiotomy is nothing but cutting the external genitalia. I mean, making it a bigger opening, but always you have to do it on the lateral, dorsolateral side. Don't try to do it on the vertical. It may lead to a rectovaginal fistula. So you do it dorsolateral side. So whatever the level required, you do it and take the fetus out. I mean, you can do two incision also, one this side and one this side. After relieving it, you have to do the sutures and take care of that episiotomy wound. If suppose fetus is alive and any other procedure is not possible, if you decide, then quickly you have to decide and switch over to cesarean section. I'm not going to explain much about cesarean section here. Only thing is, you all know that the cesarean procedure, if it is required, and particularly when the fetus is alive, if no other procedure, if you feel that not going to help or to deliver a live fetus, then automatically you have to switch over to cesarean in time, so that you'll be able to save both the calf and the mother. So the indications are narrow pelvis. If the pelvis is narrow to such an extent, you may not be able to take the fetus out, you do it. Then irreducible uterine torsion. At times you may not be able to correct uterine torsion, then you have to go for cesarean section. And incomplete dilatation of the cervix, and fetal oversize, where whatever the procedure you adopt, if you are not able to deliver in fetal oversize, you have to go for cesarean section. Then fetal deformity or monsters. Some of the monsters, some part of the fetus may be very big, you may not be able to deliver it. Then uncorrectable abnormal P1, P2, P3. So in all these conditions, you have to think about cesarean section in time, so that before, at times after applying all the procedures, you'll be very tired to undertake cesarean section. So if it is really cesarean is required, your diagnosis should be proper, and immediately you should be, you have to adopt cesarean section, so that you can effect delivery properly. So if the animal is having uterine torsion, then you have to do the diagnosis by doing both rectal and vaginal examination. Then based on the displacement of the ligament, you have to, and as well as the course of the twist in the vaginal passage, you do the diagnosis, which side the torsion has taken place. Accordingly, you please do the correction procedure by casting the animal and adopting the safest method. So this is the best suitable method to relieve a torsion. And anyway, I am not going to explain much about the relieving procedure of the torsion here. Probably they may be doing it in some other webinar class. So just to, it's a finally to sum up, particularly if there is a problem with a fetus, that is when there is a dystocia or a difficulty in birth existing. If everything normal, naturally animal will go for spontaneous delivery. So suppose if the animal owner called you in a normal calving process, just you do the examination. If the animal is going in for normal delivery, you just leave it and ask the animal owner to observe, or you can also, if it is in the process, you can also observe it. So spontaneous delivery may be possible in that animal. And when the calving is interrupted, I mean, if the animal is not going to push the fetus out or expel the fetus out, then you please check for the normal, the presentation position posture. If it is, if anything is not normal, you please, the abnormal one, you do the correction, and then go for extraction, that is traction. the traction principle we have seen. So you try to apply all the traction principle, particularly the arc-like traction and the points of traction. So all those things, keep it in mind and apply traction and relieve the dystocia. So if extraction is possible, that is that if it is by traction, you go for normal force extraction and relieve it. And in the case of hip lock, bilateral hip flexion, you please look at whether the calf is alive or calf is dead. If it is alive, forced extraction and the correction procedure, what we have seen, how to remove the hip lock. So you apply that one and remove it by traction. If it is not possible, you go for partial feetotomy. Then if whether it is an anterior presentation or posterior presentation, if you are not able to extract the fetus, or if you feel that extraction is not at all possible, you look for the, I mean, whether the calf is alive or dead. If it is, of course, alive or dead, you have to go for cesarean section. And if you're a dead fetus, if space is okay, you can go for feetotomy also. So your diagnosis should be sharp, and your selection of procedure also should be very appropriate, so that you'll be able to deliver the, I mean, your procedure also going to be adapted in time. In appropriate time, you will be able to deliver a live calf. You will be able to save the mother, and it's a great service. The animal owner will be happy, and as a field veterinarians, you all must be, you would have experienced with very many farmers how happy they are when there is going to be when you are going to relieve a live calf and save his animal. Of course, in a very difficult dystocia and all, you will get relieved. Normally the farmers, they will not relieve you from their place unless you are going to relieve the dystocia. So your job is not over by just relieving the dystocia. So there are some post-parturian problems in the cases of dystocia. So you may come across retained fetal membranes, prolapse of the uterus, the injury to the birth canal may be there. You have to attend that, and the chances for puerperal metritis and septic metritis. So all these things you have to keep it in mind, and you have to do a follow-up to that case, and you have to advise the animal owner to approach you for further follow-up on that case, or whatever the problem is going to be there, you should bring it to our notice immediately, and at least for next 3 days you have to follow that case and give the follow-up support. So generally the general therapy required is a course of antibiotic if it is a very difficult dystocia or little delayed case. Then topical medication. In a postpartum cases, you may have to do intrauterine therapy. Very many preparations are available. Then normally during treatment, you may have to use uterine stimulants, including calcium therapy, oxytocin, in appropriate time. So you should know the what are all the uterine stimulants like oxytocin, Isaac Supreme preparations. So these things are available. Then uterine relaxants you may have to use during your process. So the you have to, I mean, Isaac Supreme preparations are available, and you can use it for uterine relaxation when attending a dystocia on specific cases. So these are all the general therapy required. When you are using antibiotic, look at the dose and the interval it is required. Very sincerely, you have to follow at least for 3 days the required amount of antibiotic at required interval. It should be given.